Welcome to Power University, where today we're going to go over Tesla Powerwall 3 tips and tricks. Um, so, as in March of 2025, we're no longer dealing with the Powerwall 2. We're no longer really dealing with the Gateway 2. The Nuriometer is old news. We're kind of all about Tesla Powerwall 3s, Gateway 3s, the Tesla Backup Gateway 3, and the Tesla Remote Meter, which replaced the old Nuriometer. So let's start at the top here. The Tesla Powerwall 3 is a string inverter. For those that may just be used to installing Solar Edge and Enphase over the last 5 or 10 years, this is a pretty big game changer, and there's a lot of limitations you got to keep in mind here. Every string has to land between 60 and 550 volts DC. So always make sure to string those solar panels up per the approved plan set. Again, string inverter rules are much different. We have to keep every string or every MPPT of solar panels all facing the same direction on the same tilt in the same solar panel. We cannot mix and match roof planes on the same MPPT or on the same string. So in general, you've got 6 MPPTs in the Tesla Powerwall 3. And you can run 6 strings, 1 string to each. Now that's these days if you land under 15 amps of current, which should really work for any solar panel that we're utilizing. Now some people may want to use that feature. There's a little jumper where you can jumper 2 of the MPPTs together and sort of parallel the strings on the roof. Maybe save yourself a little bit of wire from the roof down to the Powerwall 3. Now, if you choose to do that, that is fine. But again, those paralleled strings have to be on the same amount of solar panels. They have to be facing the same direction. They have to be on the same tilt. You cannot mix and match. Again, different facing solar panels, different amounts of solar panels, different tilted solar panels on the same MPPT. So when you're using that little parallel jumper, they all have to be facing the exact same direction, exact same tilt. It's so critical. If you fail to do this and you put them on different strings, what's going to happen is the worst producing solar panel is going to just drag the rest of them down at any given time. So if you say have an east and a west, in the morning when the sun's shining on those east panels, they're going to be dragged down to making nearly nothing because of those west facing panels. And then vice versa. In the afternoon when the west panels should be cranking out, they're going to be getting dragged down by those east panels that aren't getting any sun at all. This is really critical. If you don't follow the string inverter rules, it's going to cause the system to underperform and not meet the expectations of the homeowner. All right, so next we've got the Tesla ferrite cores. This is a really common failure here at Power, and that's because there's 3 different iterations of the Tesla Powerwall 3 with 3 different iterations of how you need to install those Tesla ferrite cores. They're based on the model number. So depending on the model number, you'll have anywhere between 1 and 3 ferrite cores. But the good rule of thumb, we've got a nice little handout that we send out on Power OS. But a good rule of thumb is if it comes with 3 ferrite cores, you're going to need 1 on the DC conductors, on the AC conductors, and down on the bottom of the communications cable. If it comes with 2 ferrite cores, you don't need to worry about the DC conductors. You're just going to hit those AC conductors and the bottom of the communication cables. Lastly, if it only comes with 1 ferrite core, all you need to do is hit those communication cables down at the bottom of the Powerwall. PCS is becoming a more known fact of life here in the solar and energy storage industry, and that's because of all the AC coupled systems and just larger battery currents. Per the 120% rule, we really can't backfeed tons of power without using PCS these days. So this is going to go for really any system Power offers. but especially with the Tesla Powerwall 3, because it's such a large battery with such a high current, um, more often than not, you may have to utilize Tesla panel level PCS, and that's pretty straightforward. If it's a 200 amp service, you're going to do 80% of 200 amps, which is 160 amps continuous. Right there in the app, when you punch in that continuous current rating in fine print right below, it's going to say this is suitable for a XXX panel. So again, if it's a 100 amp panel, you're going to set that panel level PCS for 80 amps continuous. Again, and what that does, right, is it just the CTs are monitoring everything coming in from the grid. Everything, the system knows what the solar is making and what the batteries are discharging, and it just makes sure that the combination of all of those sources never exceed the rating of the panel. All right, so import export settings. This is pretty huge, especially in California for SCE, SDGE, and PGE with NEM3. So if you're in one of those three utilities, we're setting all of our customers up with export only, because that is the best payback for the customer. So you're gonna have to disallow charging from the grid or import, and then you're going to have to enable export of both solar and battery. And that's because for NEM3, those few times a year when the utility is charging a massive amount for power on time of use rates, we're going to want those batteries to discharge to the grid and bank a ton of credits for that homeowner, and they're going to get a lot of financial gain out of that situation. Now, for anywhere else in the country, just default to your local region and utilities requirements on import, export, or charging from the grid. I think most places you're just going to be wanting to export solar only, but again, that's going to vary across the country. All right, next, you've got to add Power PBC, DBA, Power Home Construction as a partner during the commissioning process. So when you're entering your company's name in, you also have to add partners. If you fail to do this, you have a 100% chance of failing the quality evaluation, getting a really low score, having to go back or start a case with Tesla. And this just takes a lot of time and a lot of back and forth, and it's just a huge reason why partners get low scores and rework requests at Power. So just make sure while you're on site, day of commissioning, you add Power PBC, DBA, Power Home Construction as a partner. Next, for the financier, you also need to add them as a partner. So that is for third-party owned systems primarily, which is getting more and more prevalent these days. So that's going to be for Sonova, Lightreach, GoodLeap. I think Enfin's coming out with a TPO system. I know there's a few more out there that aren't coming to mind yet. But if it is a third-party owned system, you need to add that company as a partner as well as Power. A failure to do so is going to get yourself some finance rejections. The financiers are not going to fund the project. Then you're going to have to just, again, start a case with Tesla, and it's just a bunch of back and forth that you just really don't want to deal with. Next, the MPPT test. Make sure to test all the MPPTs during the commissioning process. Make sure that all strings are functioning, producing voltage, producing power, because when it comes to the quality assurance evaluation, we're going to log into that system, assuming you gave us web monitoring access. We're going to check every single individual string and make sure that it is functioning and that everything is connected properly. So go ahead and do that on site. If you have a malfunctioning string, get it sorted out before you mark that installation complete on Power OS. Next, the MCI map and string map, right? Just like any other system, we need that mapped out. So we need to know what panels are strung and how. We need to know where the MCIs are placed. Again, those are needed for rapid shutdown compliancy. I think you need one every 3 panels and at least 2 per subarray. Okay, let's skip the remote meter for a second and go straight to the drain wire. The cable between the gateway and the Powerwall 3, or between the backup switch and the Powerwall 3, needs to be shielded with a metal shield and a drain wire. That drain wire then has to be wrapped around that equipment grounding conductor in the Powerwall and landed in that grounding terminal block. Failure to do so, you're going to get failed financier rejections, and you're also going to fail your power quality assurance evaluation. 2 forms of communication are required for Tesla. So that's going to be cell and Wi-Fi, or cell and hardwired Ethernet, or Wi-Fi and hardwired Ethernet, whatever you want to choose. Generally, it's going to be cellular combined with one of those other options. Cellular alone is not sufficient. Neither is Wi-Fi alone. We need 2 forms of communication. Tesla requires that, and it's for a good reason. Lastly, homeowner registration. This is super important. It doesn't matter if you add all these people during commissioning and you do everything perfectly. If the homeowner does not complete their homeowner registration, no one's going to have online monitoring access. You're going to fail that quality assurance evaluation. You're going to get low scores. And again, it's just going to create a bunch of back and forth and payment delays. So when this thing is fully commissioned, you got everything just nailed down perfectly. You send that homeowner registration to the homeowner, and then you follow up with them and you make sure they complete the registration before you mark that installation complete on PowerOS. And that's going to ensure when the time comes for the financier or for the power quality assurance team to evaluate the project, we can actually pull up the web monitoring, go through our evaluation, and give you a 100% score and sign off on the project. All right, and Tesla remote meter. So again, the Tesla Powerwall 3 is a really strong battery. These days, you can back up most homes in the U.S. with one single Powerwall 3, but that's not the case for all homes. So to make your life easy and not have to install CTs, the recommendation is, when possible, back up the whole home. It just makes your life easy. It makes the job simple. In cases where you can't do that and you install partial home backup, well, we need to get those CTs on the line side of all home loads. We no longer have that secondary meter in the Gateway 3. This is designed for whole home backup only, with these built-in CTs that measure everything coming in from the grid. Well, that means we need to purchase this Tesla remote meter separately. And it's got to be installed with CTs on the line side of all home loads. And that means when the grid is working, regardless of if we have backed up loads or non-backed up loads, anytime the home is trying to use power, those batteries are going to discharge to meet that load and offset that customer's utility bill with solar and battery. You're also going to need that remote meter if you have AC coupled solar. So if you have existing solar, on the load side of either the backup switch or the load side of the backup gateway, you have to install that remote meter. You have to monitor that AC coupled PV, and that way when the power goes out, it can manage that PV in order to make sure everything functions seamlessly. So like any system, the metering and the CTs are one of the number one failures here. And that's why it's always good to do whole home backup. If there's no AC coupled solar, you don't have to install a single CT. But that just isn't always the case. So not only do you have polarity where the CTs have to face the correct direction, in this case, we have to have the text or the source this side facing the grid. Or if you're AC coupling solar, the text or the source this side needs to face that AC coupled solar inverter. Next, you've got to take care of phase alignment. That is the number one failure point in all energy storage systems across the board. I've got a really great series specifically on just general phase alignment, but we're going to quickly run through it with the Tesla Powerwall 3 specifically. All right, so you're going to go ahead, turn your meter to volts alternating current. Now we need to make sure the L1 and L2 lug in the Powerwall 3 are on the right conductor. Let's just keep every L1 black and every L2 red to make things simple. All right, so where the Powerwall 3 is going to connect to the bus bar over here, the top is going to be L2. The next down is L1, L2, L1, L2, L1, L2, L1. Right, there's 8 spaces there. L2 starting at the top, L1 following. It's super critical. In this case, we've got a main service panel. We're following L2 and L1 down. We're feeding the gateway 3. Now this is a gateway 3 without an Eaton CSR breaker. So if it's no breaker or if it's a square D breaker, L2 is going to be on the left, L1 is going to be on the right. If you install an Eaton CSR breaker, they cross phases inside of the breaker, and L1 is going to be on the left, L2 on the right. Same goes for those critical loads lugs. L1 is going to be on the left, L2 is going to be on the right, unless you install an Eaton CSR breaker, in which case those phases are going to be swapped. What we want to do, we want to get our voltmeter out, put it on volts alternating current. We're going to go through, right? Just start somewhere. Let's just pick the L1 lug in the gateway. From there, we're going to check the L1 lug in the Powerwall 3. We want 0 volts. Then we're going to check the L1 breaker on the circuit breaker feeding the Powerwall 3. We want 0 volts. We're going to check L1 feeding the critical loads panel. We want 0 volts. We're going to check the L1 down here in the critical loads panel. We want 0 volts. We're going to check that L1 power supply on that remote meter. We want 0 volts. 0 volts. Right? We want to come over here where the remote meter CT is installed, the L1 CT. We want 0 volts. If at any point you get 240 volts, you have crossed phases somewhere and you need to fix it. For that remote meter, just remember we need that blue wire tapped into the L2 port when we're using just a 120, 240 single phase residential service. Right? And we got CT1 feeding L1, CT2 and 3 feeding L2. So whether you're checking AC coupled solar or consumption, CT1 is always going to be L1, CT2 and 3 are always going to be L2. All right, lastly, again, if you're using that Tesla remote meter with a gateway 3 and you're capturing all home loads, the service conductors, you want to set the remote meter to site and site for the 2 CTs. And then you're going to want to go to that primary meter X and you're going to want to set that to none, right? Because that is measuring all home loads coming in from the utility all the way through the system. If you do not set the primary meter X to none, then any power running through the gateway to the backup loads panel is going to get doubled and it's going to cause the readings to be incorrect. Now, if you happen to use those remote meter CTs just to measure some branch circuits separately and they're not managing the main power that's going into the gateway, well, then you can leave both meters set to site. Lastly, for those people that are used to installing Tesla Powerwall 2s, you used to have to hit the PV circuit with a solar CT. That is no longer the case with Powerwall 3, and that's because the Powerwall 3 has its own internal PV meter. Also, if you're installing the backup switch, then that measures all the consumption coming in and out of the grid. So again, no CTs needed, no meter programming necessary. Well, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate all of you. Till next time, take care.